You feel it in quiet moments when no one is watching. A subtle quiver runs through your awareness, as if the fabric of ordinary life has loosened at the seams. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It creeps in as whispers, flashes of strangeness you can't explain. You sit in a familiar room, then suddenly feel like a guest inside your own body. You look at your hands, they seem foreign, like tools rather than the essence of you. The world carries on, unchanged traffic, hums, voices, chatter, clocks tick. Yet something inside no longer fits. This is the first sign. You assume you're losing your grip when in truth you're slipping free of old chains. Cracks appear in your sense of normal. They are not symptoms of decline, but signals of awakening. What once felt solid now seems translucent, like mist over water. The stories that demanded loyalty, status, reputation, achievement have grown pale, almost irrelevant. You used to wake up chasing approval, defending identities, serving roles. Now you wake with sharper questions. Who am I beneath all this? Why does none of it satisfy me anymore? At first it unsettles you. You think, maybe I'm burned out, maybe I'm broken. Yet a deeper truth pushes through your consciousness, has outgrown the costume it wore for years. The signs are subtle, yet undeniable. That favorite show feels hollow. Gossip drains your energy instead of entertaining you. Scrolling messages feels empty, like reading lines from a play you never auditioned for. Two layers of reality begin to overlap. The surface world of jobs, bills, obligations, plus an inner current quietly blooming. It's as though you stand in both simultaneously, the visible stage alongside the invisible current beneath it. Most people drown in the surface play, convinced the script is all that exists. You've touched the seam that reveals more. It shows up in fleeting ways. A phrase overheard lights up like neon, not for its meaning, but for what it stirs inside. A dream slips into daylight, then unfolds hours later. Time itself stretches some hours wide and heavy, while others collapse in an instant. These distortions are not mistakes, they are invitations. They whisper, you are not inside reality. Reality is inside you. Resistance comes quickly, you explain it away as coincidence, fatigue, stress. Yet the signs keep multiplying. Storms that once swallowed you pass overhead without pulling you under. Disappointments that used to crush dissolve before they can land. Emotions rise yet lose their grip. They flow like waves against a shore, while you remain the shore itself. The question rises, if you are no longer your stories or your emotions, then who are you? Here lies the paradox. You are becoming less of who you thought you were, while more of who you truly are. Anchors such as roles, attachments, identities loosen. Part of you grieves, another part exhales relief. You are not vanishing, you are waking. Picture living in a house for years. Every piece of furniture feels permanent, tables, chairs, pictures nailed to walls. One day you realize none of it is fixed. You could move it. You could even leave the house. That freedom unsettles you because the old layout provided comfort, even if it was never truly yours. Yet once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. Awareness doesn't vanish. That's what you are encountering now. The house of your mind beliefs, habits, the self you clung to was never nailed down. This shift has texture. Your body may buzz at night, your nervous system adjusting to a new frequency. People once close to you now feel out of sync. Conversations once effortless feel flat. Even silence touches you differently. These are signs of recalibration, an inner compass redirecting you from illusion toward presence. You realize you are not the character you are, the witness behind the character. Not simply a thinker, but awareness itself. That awareness marks the first stirrings of quantum consciousness. Many miss this phase. They bury it beneath distraction, medicate it with busyness, drown it in the noise of others' expectations. Yet you noticed. If you've read this far, you have felt the tremor beneath the mask of reality. Doubt may still linger, but a deeper part of you knows. This knowing grows on its own. It does not come from books or lectures. It is experiential, visceral, undeniable. You are not in the body is within you. You are not in time is within you. Once you glimpse this truth, even for a moment, you cannot fully return to sleep. The subtle signs are not an end point. They are the doorway. Step through them even without a map, especially without a map. The mind will never chart what the soul already remembers. You wake up one morning and the world feels strangely thin, like a stage set where the paint has begun to peel. The things that used to ignite you, new projects, small victories, compliments, now carry no weight. They fall flat like echoes bouncing in an empty hall. At first, the emptiness feels like loss. You wonder if something has gone wrong inside you, if the passion you relied on has withered. Yet beneath that hollowness lies something liberating, the beginning of detachment from illusions that no longer serve. The shift shows itself in subtle ways. A conversation that once left you buzzing now drains you. The social rituals you used to enjoy, gatherings, games of status, endless chatter, suddenly feel mechanical. You sit among friends and notice yourself drifting away from the storylines they cling to. Their dramas, once magnetic, now feel like cardboard props in a play you've outgrown. You aren't numbed. You're simply no longer hooked. At first, this disconnection scares you. You've built an identity from caring too much, from chasing approval, from investing your energy into other people's storms. Without that fuel, who are you? The mind whispers that you're breaking down. Yet what's happening is closer to a breakthrough. The collapse of excitement over shallow pursuits makes space for a deeper resonance. You are beginning to sense that your worth is not tethered to external sparks. Imagine you're carrying a backpack filled with stones. Each stone represents a role, a responsibility, a drama you once claimed as essential. You lug it everywhere, convinced it defines you. Then one day, without trying, you drop the bag. The relief startles you. You've mistaken heaviness for meaning, but the truth is the opposite. Meaning arrives when the weight is gone. That lightness, that strange lack of investment in old stories is not failure, it's freedom. You notice it in your body too. Certain conversations tighten your chest. Certain environments leave you restless, as if your nervous system refuses to cooperate with the old frequency. Other moments, however, bring unexpected calm. Sitting quietly, you feel more alive than in any noisy celebration. Stillness nourishes you more than applause. This reversal baffles the mind, but delights the soul. Here lies the paradox. Disconnection feels empty on the surface, yet abundant beneath it. You are no longer pouring your energy into what drains you. You are reclaiming it. The void you sense is not absence. It's an opening. Into that space flows intuition, creativity, presence, qualities that couldn't enter while your life was crowded with noise. Others may misinterpret this shift. They might say you're cold, distant, detached. They cannot see that you're discovering a quieter depth. They measure value by excitement, performance, constant reaction. You measure now by alignment, by resonance, by truth. Their judgment may sting, but you already sense it carries no real authority. For the first time, you realize that your loyalty to yourself matters more than your reputation in their eyes. Think of a musician who has played the same song for years. At first, it thrilled them. Over time, the melody dulled, each note mechanical. Then one evening mid-performance, their fingers pause. Silence floods in. That silence feels truer than the song ever did. The audience fidgets, confused, yet the musician feels relief. They realize they were never meant to keep repeating someone else's tune. That's you now. The music of the old life no longer fits your rhythm. The pause you feel is not failure, it's the space before a new song. Disconnection has another gift. It reveals what actually matters. Without the constant rush of stimulation, you begin to notice subtle joys. A quiet walk feels sacred. A breath of fresh air steadies your whole being. A single meaningful conversation outweighs a dozen shallow ones. You discover that life does not need to be loud to be alive. Of course, the ego resists. It panics when the familiar thrill disappears. It whispers that you've lost ambition, that you've gone numb, that something is broken. Yet in truth, numbness is what you left behind. You were numb when you kept feeding yourself empty distractions. Now you're sensitive to alignment. You're discerning enough to notice when something is hollow. That is not apathy, it's clarity. This stage feels like being suspended between two worlds. The old world still exists, buzzing around you, demanding your attention. Yet it no longer has a hook in you. The new world has not yet fully revealed itself. You float in between, restless, uncertain, tempted to crawl back. Yet you can't. Once the illusion thins, you cannot make it solid again. You may pretend, but the pretending will exhaust you faster each time. So you learn to sit inside the emptiness without labeling it wrong. You treat it like soil, dark, quiet, waiting. From that soil, something new will sprout. The seed has already been planted, the recognition that your joy does not depend on outer games. You are not abandoning life. You are clearing space for life to move through you more authentically. The liberation grows slowly, almost imperceptibly. One day you realize you no longer crave approval in the same way. Another day you notice that an old trigger has no power over you. Then another day you catch yourself smiling for no reason, simply from the relief of not needing to perform. What once felt like disconnection now feels like sovereignty. This is the sacred truth hidden in emptiness. What you call detachment is not loss. It is the first breath of freedom. You are stepping outside the machinery of conditioned responses. You are letting your energy return home. You are creating room for a life that will not drain you, but align with you. The emptiness is not the end. It is the clean slate. Something remarkable begins to happen. You notice yourself observing instead of automatically reacting. A thought appears, yet instead of being swept along, you hover above it. You see it for what it is, a string of words, a spark of programming, not the truth of who you are. The same occurs with emotions. Anger rises, grief stirs, excitement surges, yet you watch them like weather moving through the sky. They no longer consume you, you remain. This is the emergence of the observer. For most of your life, you've been immersed in the performance of the character, rushing from one scene to another, carrying the weight of identity as if it were the only reality. Now suddenly you realize you can step back. You are both actor and audience, role and witness. It is dizzying, almost disorienting, but also liberating. Imagine watching a film where the main character suffers setback after setback. You sit in the theater, absorbed, your heart pounding with their struggles. Then something shifts. You remember you're in a seat, watching flickering images. The drama still unfolds, but it no longer defines you. That's the difference between being trapped in the character and awakening as the observer. At first, this shift unsettles you. You think, am I becoming detached? Am I losing my humanity? Yet what's really happening is an expansion. You haven't lost compassion. You've gained perspective. You still feel, but the feelings no longer drag you beneath the surface. You can grieve without drowning rage, without being blinded, celebrate without becoming intoxicated. You carry the experience while staying rooted in awareness. This newfound stance alters the way you move through daily life. Someone criticizes you, and instead of collapsing into shame, you notice the mechanics of the trigger. You hear the voice of judgment, but also hear the quieter presence beneath it saying, "This is not who you are." You lose an opportunity, and instead of spiraling, you catch the storyline forming. You watch the mind constructing a narrative of failure, yet you don't believe it as you once did. Observation interrupts the trance. There's a subtle joy in this witnessing. You realize that thoughts are not chains. They are currents you can choose whether to follow. You realize that emotions are not prisons. They are tides rising and receding while you remain the ocean itself. The ego resists this at first. It shouts louder, trying to pull you back into identification. Yet, the very fact that you can hear the shouting proves that you are not the voice. Think of a child putting on costumes, pirate, astronaut, princess. Each time the costume feels thrilling, almost real. Then one day the child laughs, realizing none of them are truly them. That recognition doesn't end the game, it transforms it. Costumes can still be worn, but now with freedom. That is how you begin to experience your roles as garments you can step into, rather than prisons you must endure. This awareness seeps into your relationships. Where once you argued to be right, now you pause. You hear the storylines, people recite their fears, their egos, their unhealed wounds, and you no longer take the bait. You don't need to correct them, nor do you absorb their chaos. You can hold space without collapsing into their storm. Presence becomes more powerful than persuasion. Of course, the shift brings challenges. You may feel a strange separation from others, as though you live in two worlds at once. They continue to take their dramas as absolute reality, while you see the strings behind the puppets. This can feel lonely, yet it also reveals a deeper connection. For in seeing through the illusion, you recognize that beneath every mask, beneath every role, the same awareness resides. You are not separate, you are simply awake. The emergence of the observer transforms time itself. You no longer race through moments unconsciously. You notice the texture of them. You sense the silence between words, the stillness behind movement. Even ordinary experiences, washing dishes, walking outside, listening to a friend, acquire depth. They no longer rush past as forgettable tasks. They become alive with presence simply because you are not lost in the character anymore. This shift cannot be forced. It unfolds like dawn breaking through night, at first dim, then clearer, then undeniable. The observer grows stronger each time you choose not to merge with thought, each time you sit inside an emotion without collapsing into it. What once felt like effort becomes natural. Watching becomes your default stance. Life does not lose intensity, it gains clarity. The paradox is striking you, become more human, while feeling less bound to being human. You can cry freely yet without clinging. You can laugh deeply yet without needing circumstances to justify it. You can love fully yet without the chains of possession. Awareness does not strip you of life, it restores you to it. In these moments of observation, you begin to glimpse your true nature. Not as a fleeting personality, not as a bundle of thoughts, not as a fragile ego clinging to survival. You are something larger. The awareness that watches does not age, it does not break, it does not end. You begin to sense that this awareness has always been here long before your current story began. It will remain after the story fades. The emergence of the observer is not the final step, but it is the turning point. Once you know you are not the mask, you cannot unknow it. You may slip back into old roles, but each return grows shorter, less convincing. The drama continues, yet you know it as drama. You hold the freedom of seeing, and that freedom cannot be revoked. Illusion begins to unravel in front of your eyes. You notice the invisible threads that have been pulling your actions, shaping your choices, even dictating your desires. For so long you believed these impulses were yours. Now, as the fog thins, you see them as programming conditioning woven into you by family, culture, education, and survival. It feels unsettling at first, like discovering that your most cherished identity was stitched together from other people's expectations. You begin catching yourself in moments that once felt natural. You hear your own inner voice echoing words you inherited, not words you chose. You react to someone's tone and realize the response isn't yours. It's borrowed from childhood, copied from a parent, repeated so often it masqueraded as truth. The realization stings, yet it also frees you. If this identity was constructed, it can be deconstructed. If it was learned, it can be unlearned. Picture yourself in a costume shop. Every garment you've worn, dutiful child, ambitious worker, loyal partner, hangs on racks. For years you forgot they were costumes. You thought they were skin. Now you touch the fabric and recognize its weight, its borrowed style. Some pieces don't fit anymore, though you once wore them proudly. Others suffocate you, though you once clung to them for safety. The shock is not that the costumes exist. The shock is realizing you are not any of them. This exposure of illusion is both exhilarating and destabilizing. You start to see how much of life has been built on repetition rather than intention. The rules of your society, what success means, what failure means, what love is supposed to look like, suddenly appear arbitrary. You question why you once followed them without hesitation. Was it fear? Was it the promise of belonging? You see now that much of what you called choice was simply conditioning dressed as freedom. The ego resists fiercely. It insists that these roles define you, that without them you'll dissolve into nothing. It whispers, who are you if you aren't your history? What remains if you set aside your labels? The panic feels real. Yet as you lean into the fear, you realize something profound behind every borrowed identity. A deeper self has been waiting. That self doesn't rely on scripts. It simply is. This is why awakening often feels like disorientation. It's not that you are vanishing, it's that the scaffolding built to contain you is collapsing. Imagine a bird kept in a cage since birth. One day the door opens. At first the bird clings to the bars, trembling, terrified of the sky. The cage was heavy, but it was familiar. The sky is limitless and its vastness overwhelms. Yet sooner or later wings remember what they were made for. In daily life, the unraveling shows up in countless small ways. You stop laughing at jokes that rely on cruelty. You decline opportunities that once seemed essential, sensing they would cost too much of your soul. You resist the urge to prove yourself in arguments, realizing victory in illusion is still defeat. Your silence grows louder than your performance ever was. Relationships feel different as well. You notice when others speak from programming instead of presence. You hear the fear in their anger, the neediness in their affection, the insecurity in their boasts. Once you would have answered with your own scripts. Now you simply watch. Sometimes you respond from clarity. Other times you choose no response at all. Both are acts of freedom. This unraveling does not strip life of meaning. It restores it. When the illusions fall away, simple experiences become radiant. A quiet breath, a moment of eye contact, a walk under the sky, all reveal themselves as pure, untouched by conditioning. They do not need validation or interpretation. They simply exist, and in their existence you find truth. Of course, there is grief for the years spent wearing masks, for the energy wasted chasing roles you never truly wanted, for the dreams that weren't even yours. This grief is sacred. It cleanses, it honors the old structures while releasing them. Without it, you would cling forever. With it, you finally let go. The unraveling also exposes deeper questions. If so much of you was constructed, then who is watching the collapse? Who remains when the roles dissolve? You glimpse an answer, not in words, but in sensation, the quiet presence that never depended on identity. It is still there, steady, untouched, witnessing both the illusions and their falling away. This stage can feel like standing between two mirrors, one reflecting the old story, one reflecting possibility. The old story pulls with habit, familiarity, fear of change. The new reflection glimmers with freedom, yet demands courage. Every day you lean a little further toward the new. You learn to trust the discomfort of growth more than the comfort of repetition. Illusion exposed is not destruction, it is revelation. The collapse of false structures is not the end of you, it is the beginning of you. Each mask removed uncovers more of your original face. Each belief questioned opens more space for truth. What remains is not emptiness. What remains is the field of consciousness itself, spacious enough to hold infinite possibilities. You begin noticing alignments too precise to dismiss. A thought flickers, then hours later someone speaks the exact phrase. You remember a friend you haven't spoken to in months, their message arrives that same day. Time bends slow during silence compressed when you enter deep focus. These aren't random events. They're signals that the field is answering you. A deeper truth takes root. Reality doesn't stand apart from your state of being. It mirrors it. The field doesn't simply surround you, it emerges through you, shifting according to your vibration. Once you might have labeled these patterns coincidence, yet repetition strips away doubt. Synchronicities accumulate until they reveal something undeniable. Life listens. Thoughts and emotions function as instructions, not private whispers. Each sends ripples through the unseen. Fear scatters the signal, filling it with static. Clarity sharpens it, pulling opportunities into view with uncanny timing. You are not a spectator. You are a tuning fork shaping resonance in the world around you. At first, this awareness overwhelms. If reality bends toward your frequency, then every choice carries weight. Responsibility feels immense. Yet almost immediately, another realization surfaces. You've been doing this unconsciously your entire life. Awakening does not burden you with new power. It reveals the power you've always used. Now you can wield it intentionally. Alignments multiply, you stop resisting what is, and doors swing open. The right person appears at the right moment. Ideas arrive like whispers from beyond thought. You no longer dismiss them as luck. You recognize evidence. Consciousness and field aren't separate. They are one movement. Picture standing at the edge of a lake. You drop a stone. Ripples spread outward, touching every corner. Thoughts are stones, emotions too. The more coherent your energy, the cleaner the ripple. Stones of fear distort the water. Stones of trust send waves that move smoothly across the surface. The lake reflects exactly what you contribute. You may test this truth. You think of a word or symbol, then watch it surface. It appears in a song lyric, a billboard, or a casual remark. The mind tries to call it coincidence, but alignment occurs too often to ignore. The observer within you has begun collapsing possibilities into form. This isn't magic in a fairy tale sense, it's resonance. Your inner state organizes the outer field. Just as a tuning fork causes a nearby string to vibrate, your consciousness draws forth realities that match. Anger summons chaos, gratitude invites harmony, desperation attracts confusion. Peace stabilizes clarity. The principle isn't moral, it's vibrational. Control becomes a temptation. You attempt to force positive thoughts to manufacture outcomes. Quickly you see it fails. Forced positivity hides fear underneath, and the field responds to the vibration, not the disguise. True influence doesn't come from policing thought, it arises from shifting identity. Who you believe yourself to be determines the frequency you broadcast. This changes how you approach decisions. You no longer ask, is this logical? You ask, does this resonate? Choices once considered reckless suddenly feel aligned. Others that appeared safe now feel heavy. You stop chasing what looks appealing on paper and begin following the current of coherence. Life turns from climbing ladders into catching waves. Resistance reveals itself as friction. The more you push against reality, the harder it stiffens. The more you soften into presence, the easier it flows. Influence emerges not through force, but through alignment. Relationships reveal the same law. The field between two people amplifies whatever each carries. You arrive, anxious conversation spirals. You arrive grounded, tension dissolves. Instead of demanding others shift, you stabilize your own frequency. In turn, dynamics adjust naturally. Over time, you see synchronicities, not as curiosities, but as feedback. The field reflects your state without distortion. Obstacles mirror inner chaos. Elegant flow mirrors inner clarity. The mirror doesn't lie. It shows you exactly where you stand. This realization awakens responsibility. Complaining isn't harmless, it's a signal. Doubt isn't neutral, it plants seeds. Every vibration counts. At first the power intimidates, then it liberates. You are no longer chasing reality, you are creating alongside it. The field does not answer wishful thinking or strained effort, it responds to coherence. Living from resonance means embodying your chosen state as though it already exists. Not pretending, not forcing, embodying. Peace draws peace. Abundance draws opportunity. Love draws more of itself. The law is natural like gravity. Eventually you stop doubting. You stop asking, is this real? The proof repeats itself. The field bends to your state again and again. What once seemed impossible now feels inevitable. You realize you were never powerless, never small, never separate. You were always the signal. You were always shaping the dance. The ego does not surrender quietly. As your awareness expands, the old identity rises in protest. It whispers stories meant to pull you back into the familiar cage. You're losing control. You don't know who you are anymore. Something must be wrong. Fear seeps in heavy and convincing. The ego thrives on survival. Its voice sharpens whenever it senses extinction. This resistance can feel overwhelming. You might notice panic surging for no clear reason, or a sudden urge to cling to routines that once felt suffocating. Relationships may stir conflict as others react to the shifts in your presence. Old wounds resurface, replaying themselves with greater intensity. It seems as though life is conspiring to test your resolve. In truth, it is the ego's final defense, fighting to reassert its dominance. Think of a crumbling structure. As the foundation weakens, the building groans louder, beams creak, dust fills the air. The noise is not proof of strength, it is the sound of collapse. In the same way, your ego's resistance is proof of its fragility, not its power. It senses your departure and shouts to lure you back. The panic comes in waves. One moment you feel vast, untouchable. The next you're convinced you're unraveling. This instability is natural. You are moving between frequencies, carrying pieces of the old self while glimpsing the new. The mind interprets this as danger. It prefers certainty, even painful certainty, over the unknown. Yet each time you choose presence over panic, the grip loosens. During this stage, self-compassion becomes essential. You cannot bully the ego into silence. Aggression strengthens its narrative of threat. Instead, meet it with understanding. Recognize that the ego was designed to protect you. It gathered strategies from childhood culture, trauma tools meant to keep you safe. Outdated, yes. Malicious, no. Its resistance is not evil. It is fear. Treat it like a child clinging to your leg, afraid of being left behind. Comfort it, yet do not let it steer. You may notice your body reacting too. Sleepless nights, sudden fatigue, trembling energy through your nervous system. The shift isn't only psychological, it's physiological. As your consciousness recalibrates, your body struggles to keep up. Old stress patterns unravel, new neural pathways begin to form. It feels chaotic, yet the very chaos is evidence of transformation. Relationships often intensify in this stage. People accustomed to your old identity may push back. They may accuse you of changing, of pulling away, of becoming cold. Their discomfort mirrors your own ego's resistance. They depended on your predictable role, and now that role dissolves. You cannot blame them yet. You also cannot shrink to soothe them. Each push from outside tests whether you will choose loyalty to the past or alignment with the truth emerging inside you. The temptation to retreat is strong, to slip back into old habits, reattach to old masks, pretend nothing has shifted. You may even succeed temporarily, yet the illusion grows thinner each time. Once you have seen through the play, you cannot unsee the strings. The costume feels heavier each time you put it on. Here lies the paradox: resistance proves awakening. If nothing were shifting, the ego would not fight so hard. Its protests confirm that your awareness has begun to outgrow its cage. The stronger the pushback, the closer you are to liberation. Imagine a butterfly breaking free from its cocoon. The struggle looks violent. The wings beat, the body twists, the cocoon tears. To an outside observer, it may seem cruel, yet the resistance strengthens the wings. Without it, flight would not be possible. In the same way, your ego's resistance prepares you. Each time you hold presence through panic, each time you refuse to collapse into fear, your awareness grows steadier. The collapse of ego identities often brings grief. You mourn roles you no longer inhabit. You mourn dreams that no longer resonate. You even mourn the comfort of being certain, even if that certainty was false. Grief is not regression, it is cleansing. It makes space for what is true. As this stage unfolds, you begin to sense the difference between ego's voice and awareness itself. Ego speaks urgently with fear, insisting on control. Awareness speaks quietly, steadily, without pressure. Ego demands certainty. Awareness is content with presence. Each time you choose the quiet voice, the old identity weakens. Each time you believe the loud one, you suffer. Slowly, you learn to trust silence over noise. This resistance does not end suddenly. It diminishes like a fading echo. You may still hear old stories surface: you're not enough, you're making a mistake, you'll be abandoned, yet they no longer grip you as before. You listen, you breathe, you let them pass. The difference is subtle yet profound. You no longer believe them. The ego's collapse is not destruction of self, it is reorientation. The false structures fall, making room for something vaster. You emerge from the stage of resistance, humbled, lighter, more spacious. Fear no longer rules by default. The identity that once controlled your every move has been exposed as temporary, fragile. Awareness, once hidden, now stands at the center. What seemed like breakdown reveals itself as breakthrough. Resistance was never proof of failure. It was the final signal that awakening is real. The ego fought because it knew its reign was ending. Awareness remains because it was never in danger. As the dust of resistance begins to settle, a new challenge appears, learning to stabilize the frequency. Awakening feels exhilarating in glimpses, moments when synchronicities flow, when you sit above the noise of the mind, when clarity floods your chest like light. Yet without grounding, these glimpses fade. You return to environments and relationships shaped by your old identity. Their pull is strong. If you don't anchor the shift, the old frequency swallows you back into its rhythm. Stabilization is not about perfection, it is about return. Over and over, you bring yourself back into alignment until presence becomes natural. At first, this requires effort. You notice triggers faster, but still stumble. You react, then remember. You collapse into worry, then step back into awareness. Each return strengthens the muscle. Slowly, the gap between awareness and reactivity shrinks. Think of a musician tuning their instrument. At first, the sound wavers, slipping sharp, then flat. With patience, the tone steadies. Eventually, the string vibrates in harmony. Your consciousness works the same way. Every time you catch yourself out of tune and bring yourself back, you refine the frequency. Stability emerges not through force, but through repetition. Daily life becomes your training ground. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Instead of collapsing into anger, you breathe. A conversation brushes an old wound. Instead of spiraling, you pause and observe the sensation. A project falters. Instead of panicking, you feel into the frequency of trust. Each moment offers you a chance to choose presence. Each choice deepens coherence. You discover that the key is not suppression. You don't silence emotion. You let it move without control. You don't deny thought. You witness it without attachment. This openness allows the old patterns to release. Resistance tightens the grip, observation dissolves it. In time, reactivity loses its hold. The nervous system learns calm as its default state. Relationships transform in this phase as well. You stop demanding others regulate your emotions. You realize that expecting them to validate your worth or soothe your wounds was a contract built on survival. Instead, you cultivate your own stability. Conversations deepen because you no longer speak to prove, defend, or persuade. You listen through presence. You respond from resonance. Others may not always match your frequency, yet your stability influences them more than their instability influences you. This stage also reveals the difference between action from fear and action from alignment. Fear-based action feels rushed, heavy, chaotic. Aligned action feels light, effortless, quietly powerful. You stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "What frequency am I choosing?" You sense into possibilities before leaping. When the vibration matches, momentum flows. When it doesn't, you wait. Practical rituals help you hold the frequency. Breath anchors you when the mind races. Stillness resets you when chaos swirls. Creative expression channels the energy that once fueled anxiety. Nature reminds you of coherence, the way a tree doesn't hurry, yet grows the way rivers carve paths without forcing. Every practice becomes less about control and more about return. The ego occasionally flares, whispering that stability is impossible. It insists you will always fall back. Yet you begin to see through its bluff. Even when you slip, awareness remains. You may stumble into old patterns, but you recover faster each time. Failure no longer feels fatal. It feels like feedback. You stop punishing yourself for forgetting and instead celebrate remembering. Imagine a flame flickering in the wind. At first, every gust threatens to extinguish it. Over time, the flame strengthens, learning to bend without breaking. Eventually, it burns steady, even when storms pass. That steadiness is what you cultivate now. Not rigidity, but resilience. Not force, but coherence. Synchronicities confirm your progress. The more you stabilize, the more life flows with rhythm. The right opportunities arise with less effort. Conflicts resolve with surprising ease. Even challenges feel purposeful, as though they're sculpting your capacity to remain steady. The field responds not to your temporary highs, but to your sustained frequency. You begin to sense the power of subtlety. Transformation doesn't always shout. It often whispers. A small choice to breathe instead of lash out shifts entire timelines. A decision to wait for resonance rather than rush creates paths you couldn't have planned. Stability reveals that miracles often hide inside the ordinary. The temptation to chase constant ecstasy fades. You realize awakening isn't about floating above life in perpetual bliss. It's about meeting the messiness of reality with sovereignty. Pain still arrives, yet you meet it from awareness. Fear still visits, yet you watch it without collapsing. Joy still rises, yet you don't cling to it. Everything flows while you remain steady. Stabilizing frequency does not remove challenge. It transforms your relationship with it. Life continues to shift, yet you stop being tossed around. You live from an inner gravity, a center that doesn't depend on external approval or certainty. From that center, choices refine. From that center, presence expands. You realize coherence is not a state you chase. It is a state you return to, again and again until it becomes your natural home. A profound recognition begins to take root. You are not merely a participant in creation, you are creation remembering itself. The old scaffolding has collapsed, the observer has stabilized, the field responds to your resonance. What remains is the truth of who you are, the creator, not in the sense of control or domination, but in the sense of source, the wellspring through which life expresses. This stage feels less like striving and more like remembering. You recall a wisdom that has always lived beneath your skin. It whispers, "You are not inside the universe. The universe is inside you." With this knowing, reality no longer appears as something happening to you. It reveals itself as something happening through you, with you, as you. Life transforms in subtle yet radical ways. Decisions stop feeling like battles of logic. They flow from coherence, from resonance. You sense timelines stretching before you and choose by vibration rather than fear. Doubt loses its authority because you no longer seek external validation. The field answers your alignment, not your explanations. Imagine standing before a mirror that doesn't show your reflection, but your frequency. Every thought, every choice, every feeling shifts the image. You no longer ask, "What do I want to attract?" You ask, "Who am I being right now?" For the mirror reflects identity, not desire. When you embody peace, peace reflects. When you embody abundance, opportunities emerge. When you embody love, love expands. The field never misreads. It always answers with coherence. Challenges still arrive, yet you relate to them differently. You see them as feedback, not punishment. A setback doesn't signal failure, it signals misalignment. You don't fight the mirror, you adjust the source. Even pain becomes teacher, revealing where you still cling to illusion. Nothing shows up randomly, everything points you back to your frequency. Relationships shift into sacred mirrors. You stop expecting others to complete you. Instead, you meet them from fullness. Conversations deepen when no longer fueled by defense. Conflicts soften when not charged by ego. Even endings feel less like rejection and more like recalibration. You understand that every encounter reflects the state you bring into it, and so you choose presence over performance. Work evolves as well. Tasks once heavy with obligation become lighter, flowing from alignment rather than pressure. Creativity sharpens because you no longer chase ideas, you receive them. Inspiration flows when resistance dissolves. Productivity becomes less about effort and more about coherence. You discover that when you stabilize the frequency, life collaborates. Living as creator does not mean controlling every detail. It means remembering your role as the origin of vibration. You cannot always dictate events, but you always determine your state in the midst of them. That state becomes your true power, your compass, your contribution to the collective field. Think of a singer striking a pure note. The entire room vibrates in harmony. You too become such an instrument. Your coherence ripples outward, shifting dynamics, influencing outcomes, altering the rhythm of those around you. Not by force, not by persuasion, but by resonance. This is influence at its highest, effortless, radiant, undeniable. You may notice others drawn to your presence without knowing why. They feel steadier around you, calmer, clearer. They sense the field you carry. This is not ego, it is natural. When someone stabilizes coherence, they become a lighthouse, not to dominate, but to illuminate. Eventually you realize that the journey has never been about adding more knowledge, more practices, more striving. It has been about removing what was false. Illusion dissolves, ego collapses, masks fall. What remains is simple presence. What remains is you, not as a personality clinging to survival, but as the field itself. Boundless, aware, creative. This realization is both humbling and empowering. Humbling because you see that the dramas of ego were never the full story. Empowering because you recognize that you have always been more than the character you played. You are both dreamer and dream, both painter and canvas, both question and answer. Now you walk differently, not as someone surviving reality, but as someone shaping it, not as a seeker desperate for truth, but as truth embodied. Each step carries intention, each breath radiates presence. You live as creator, not through force, but through the quiet authority of coherence. There is a sacred responsibility in this stage. Awareness is not meant to be hoarded. It wants to express, to ripple, to uplift. As you stabilize your quantum consciousness, you contribute to the collective. Your alignment becomes an offering. Your presence becomes a signal. Each choice you make writes into the field, not just for you, but for all. You are no longer asking, "Why is this happening to me?" You are asking, "What am I creating now?" That shift is the essence of awakening. That shift is the proof that your quantum consciousness is anchored. Before you leave this journey here, consider weaving it into your daily life. Create a simple checklist or ritual that anchors coherence. Morning pause, begin with 3 slow breaths, setting your frequency before the day sets it for you. Midday reset. Notice when tension rises and return to presence with a single conscious exhale. Evening reflection. Ask, what frequency did I live from today? No judgment, just awareness. Keep it simple. Small, consistent returns build stability more powerfully than rare, grand gestures. I want to leave you with an invitation. In the comments, share one word that captures the energy you are choosing to embody moving forward. Perhaps it's clarity, perhaps it's expansion, perhaps it's trust. Let that word be a declaration, a seed planted in the field not only here, but within yourself. If this message has stirred something inside you, I invite you to subscribe. This isn't simply a channel. It's a gathering of those remembering their own power, a living movement of minds and hearts reshaping possibility. When you join, you aren't just following, you are stepping into resonance with others walking the same path. Thank you for being here, for your attention, for your courage to see through illusion. You are not just a viewer, you are a participant in this unfolding. Continue tuning, continue aligning, continue remembering. I'll leave you with this thought. The universe doesn't wait for you to be perfect. It responds to your presence here and now. You are not the product of creation. You are creation remembering itself.